Krishna will come in the form of the Kalika. Is it okay?
Pardon? Which word?
This perfect. Kalika Avatar, his business will be to kill all the atheists, because ultimately the real protector is Vishnu or Krishna. The Lord incarnates and sets things in order when things are mismanaged by the so-called kings of the government, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharat. Of course, this takes many years, but the principles are is there. When the king or government does not follow the proper principles, nature deals out the principles in all the forms of war, famine, and so forth. Therefore, if the government head is not aware of these life goals, he should not take charge of ruling people. Actually, the supreme proprietor of everything is Lord Vishnu. He is the maintainer of everyone. The king, the father, and the guardian are simply represented the Lord Vishnu, empowered by him to look after the management of the and maintain things. It is therefore the duty of the head of the state to maintain the general purpose in such a way that people will ultimately know the goal of life. Nati vidu sarvata grite hi Vishnu. Unfortunately, the French government head and the general populace do not know that the ultimate goal of life is to understand the and approach Lord Vishnu. Without this knowledge, everyone is in ignorance, and all societies is crowded with cheats and cheated. Hare Krishna, Dandapula.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. So, you see, there's a story in Mahabharata of King Rantidev. King Rantidev was very charitable, and he would give away in charity everything he had. So he attained the benefit. I mean, he attained the benediction of Vasisht, sage Vasisht, by offering him cold water. He fasted many times. He would give away whatever he had for the welfare of others. So there's a story of how Rantidev was going to eat when a Brahmana appeared. So he gave his food to Brahmana. Then Brahmana left. He was about to eat the remnants. Then one Shudra appeared. Then in this way, he had to give away all his food. Eventually, then another guest came and he had to give away everything. And in this way, he pleased the Supreme Lord. In fact, so much that in Mahabharata, actually, Lord Krishna himself is praising the qualities of Maharaja Rantidev. This is the position of a king. Actually, the king is Naradev. He's like a demigod. He's the father. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, until Leela, this pastime of Gopinath Pattanayak comes. So Gopinath Pattanayak, he has been stealing money from the king. So he's been using the money to spend it on dancing girls. So he's captured by the king's son, who's a tax collector, and he's about to be put to death. So at that time, the king comes to know, Maharaj Prataprudra comes to know, and he stops this execution. And then he goes to beg the favor of Lord Chaitanya. So at that time, Lord Chaitanya explains to Gopinath Pattanayak. So Gopinath Pattanayak, his brothers and father go to meet the Lord. At that time, the Lord explains. He says, the king is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, to steal the money that belongs to the king is extremely sinful. So he says that, you are acting as a tax collector. You should have taken your fair share and spent it in whichever way you wanted. But you should never take away the money that belongs to the king. So in today's age, actually, all the kings are thus used. 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describes that in the age of Kali, all the kings will be thus used. So we see, for example, in a country like India, the Prime Minister of India drives around in very expensive cars. He has all the security of the world. And the ordinary citizens are getting killed in the very same city. There is no protection to citizens in his own city. So these are not kings, actually. They are just demons, thus used. They are very prompt in collection of taxes, but they have no consideration for giving any benefit to their citizens. So you see, that's how Kali Yuga is progressing. And in Kali Yuga, it's also mentioned Kalau Shudra Sambhava. And therefore, we see the citizens worship these kings. Oh, this is so nice. This prime minister is nice. This president is nice. And then they think like this. So, public is also fool, Shudra. And the king is also a dacoit, demonic dacoit. So, everyone is suffering because there is no dharma. Actually, everyone has forgotten Krishna. Therefore, everyone is a fool. And everyone is suffering. So here we see Maharaj Rahugana. He was very proud of his position. So actually, he should have taken guidance from Brahmanas, but he thought that he was above them. So the king is actually like the captain of a ship. The captain of a ship takes the decisions, but he doesn't take them independently. His decisions are always based on the suggestions given by his associates, the navigation officer and the chief engineer. The first mate and the chief engineer, they guide him. The engineer will tell him how fast the ship can go, how far it will go, how it is functioning. And the chief navigator, the first officer, will tell him what are the safe channels, what speed he can maintain, how soon he can expect to reach. And then he takes the decisions based on their advice. That's how a king also works. So the king is also like a captain of a ship. He's guiding the ship of society back to Godhead. Like a father, his job is to protect his children. His job is to provide them education, to provide them safety, protection, nourishment. So he cannot be neglectful with that. So just like that, the king also has to take care of the society, of the public in general, but not for some nefarious purposes, but for their protection, to guide them back to Godhead, to guide them for their, to guide them to their final destination, that is the Supreme Lord. So in this way, the king not only provides safety and security to the public, but he also provides them full spiritual guidance. Like we see the case of Prithu Maharaj. We saw in the previous canto, Prithu Maharaj, how he was guiding everyone else, how when Earth refused to give resources, he was ready to punish her also. So the king is actually the representative of the Supreme God. He is actually the guru. He's also one of the gurus, because he must provide guidance to the society in the matters of Varnashram Dharma. So if this kind of order is disturbed, then the Lord arranges for the destruction of such systems. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam. So Krishna also descends to destroy such things. And therefore we see that in this present day, there is so much of disturbance. Always some war, some strife or something. And always heads of state are getting killed or somehow punished somehow or the other. So the idea is that the king must provide spiritual guidance, and whatever it takes to provide that guidance, in the sense that he must take care of the society like his own children. He should not consider them to be his slaves or his servants. The king is the ruler. The king is not the master, he is the servant. The king serves the whole society by giving them the path of Krishna consciousness. King himself must be a pure devotee of the Lord. That's why in the previous ages we hear the stories of Rajarashis. They were kings who were sages. Maharaj Priyavrata is one example. Maharaj Dhruv. These were all great sages who became kings, actually. They were born in royal families, but they were actually sages. We see the story of Maharaj Bharat himself. So you see, that is the standard that a society must have. So this is applicable to us also. Now one may think, I am not a king or I am not anything, so how does this apply to me? So the point is that anyone who takes any position of authority or leadership, it's his prerogative. I mean, it's his prime duty to provide spiritual guidance. If not, then he becomes implicated. So you see, for example, in case of a king, he has to take 1/6 of the karma of the society, because he's collecting their taxes. If he's not good in giving guidance to them, then he must suffer. The husband must take half the karma of the wife. Wife doesn't take any karma of the husband, but husband has to take half the karma of the wife, and a fraction of the karma of the children also, actually. So in this way, you see how dangerous this material world is. So you may think that, okay, I am a pious man, how does it matter? No. If you are taking the benefit of family or society, you have to repay that. If you don't repay, then you become implicated in sinful reaction. So material world means padam padam yadviptam. There's great danger at every step. You have to be very, very cautious. So, one should not just simply enjoy the family life. One should guide the family towards Krishna consciousness, and one should himself try to become detached. Actually, the responsibility of a married man is even more dangerous. Srila Prabhupada explains it in so many conversations and lectures that a husband has to guide the wife in Krishna consciousness, wife and children, and at the same time become detached from them. He's not here to enjoy the bodies of his wife and children. Job is to guide them in Krishna consciousness and eventually leave them. Because if he somehow or the other maintains contact with them without advancing much in spiritual life, he will take the body of a female in the next birth. Because we have seen the story of Maharaj Puranjan. This is a reality. So you see, material world is an extremely dangerous place. So actually, if you see, actually what we are discussing here is very mild. If we really go deep into scriptures, you will be very depressed, or you'll become very fearful and paranoid. This material world is extremely dangerous, especially for men. For men, it's an extremely dangerous place. Hare Krishna. Yes, any questions or comments here? Continue text 8. Yada kshitav eva characharasya
यदा क्षिताव एव चराचरस्य
vidama nistham prabhavam cha nityam
विदां निष्ठां प्रभवं च नित्यम्
tannamato anyad vyavahara moolam
तन्नामतो अन्यद् व्यवहारमूलम्
nirupyatam sat kriyayanumeyam.
निरूप्यतां सत्क्रियायानुमेयम्.
May I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna, Shri Prabhupada Ji ki jai. Translation: all of us, all of us on the surface of the globe are living entities in different forms. Some of us are moving and some not moving. All of us come into existence, remain for some time, and are annihilated when the body is again mingled with the earth. We are all simply different transformations of the earth. Different bodies and capacities are simply transformation of the earth that exists in name only, for everything grows out of earth, and when everything is annihilated, it again mingles with the earth. In other words, we are but dust and we shall be but dust. Everyone can consider this point. Purport: in Brahma Sutra it is said, tad anyatvam tad anyattam arambhambhana shabdadibhya 2.1.14. This cosmic manifestation is a mixture of matter and spirit, but the cause is Supreme Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.20, it is said, Idam hi Vishwam Bhagwan Evetra. The entire cosmic manifestation is but a transformation of energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because of illusion, no one can appreciate that God is non-different from the material world. Actually, he is not different, but this material world is simply a transformation of his different energies. Parasya Shaktir Vividhava Shruyate. There are also other versions of this in the Vedas. Sarvam Khalam Idam Brahma. Matter and spirit are non-different from the Supreme Brahman, Bhagwan. Lord Shri Krishna confirms this statement in Bhagavad Gita 7.4. Me bhinna prakritir ashtadha The material energy is Krishna's energy, but it is separated from him. The supreme spiritual energy is also his energy, but it is not separated from him. When the material energy is engaged in the service of the Supreme Spirit, so-called material energy is also transformed into spiritual energy, just as iron rod becomes fire when placed in contact with fire. When we can understand by an analytical study that the Supreme Personality of God is the cause of all causes, our knowledge is perfect. Simply understanding the transformations of different energies is partial knowledge. We must come to the ultimate cause. Nate vidhu swartha gatam hi Vishnum. The knowledge of those who are not interested in knowing the original cause of all emanations is never perfect knowledge. There is nothing in the phenomenal world that is not produced by the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aromas of the earth are different scents, manufactured and used for different purposes, but the original cause is the earth, nothing else. A water pot made of earth can be used to carry water for some time, but ultimately the pot is nothing but earth. Therefore, there is no difference between the pot and its original ingredient earth. It is simply a different transformation of the energy. Originally, the cause or primary ingredient is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the varieties are only byproducts. In Chandogya Upanishad it is stated, Yatha Saumya Ekana Mrit Pindena Sarvam Mrinmayam Vijnatam Syad Vacharam Bhanam Vikaro Namadhyam Mritiketi Eva Satyam. If one studies the earth, he naturally understands the byproducts of earth. The Vedas therefore enjoin Yasmin Vignate Sarvam Evam Vignatam Bhavati. Mukunda Upanishad 1.3. If one simply understands the original cause, Krishna, the cause of all causes, then naturally everything else is understood, although it may be presented in different varieties. By understanding the original cause of different varieties, one can understand everything. If we understand Krishna, the original cause of everything, we do not need to separately study the subsidiary varieties. Therefore, from the very beginning it is said, Satyam Param Dhimahi. One has to concentrate one's understanding on the supreme truth, Krishna or Vasudeva. The word Vasudeva indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the cause of all causes. Matsthani sarva bhutani na chaham tasva avasthita. This is the summary of phenomenal and noumenal philosophy. The phenomenal world depends on the noumenal existence. Similarly, everything exists by virtue of the potency of the Supreme Lord. Although due to our ignorance, the Supreme Lord is not perceived in everything. Thank you, Ji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. So now we are going back to the second canto of Bhagavatam here actually. So you see, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they are basically stating a very few facts. They are being presented from different dimensions. They are being presented from different perspectives. You have to really meditate on these things. So many times devotees are asking so many things, we have to do this, we have to do that. But, there's not much to do really in spiritual life. You just have to be very sincere. That's all. Sometimes devotees think that they can read many books and they'll become knowledgeable, or that they can travel to all the holy places and they'll become purified. Actually, that may work and that may not work. So many devotees go to Vrindavan and then they fall into illicit sex. All the Babajis of Vrindavan, they're living in Vrindavan, they're bathing in Radhakund every day, but they're just rascals. They are always like, I have seen so many Babajis of Vrindavan. They've gone very high tech now. They all have their blogs and everything. And their sole purpose is to criticize Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. I mean, Babajis of Vrindavan are actually far more advanced. they don't criticize Prabhupada, they criticize Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And even more advanced amongst them criticize Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself. So this kind of nonsense, this kind of nonsense is going on. Trying to understand the intimate leelas of Krishna and Radha, and they have their knowledge is actually zero. They just study some Sanskrit and they think that they have become great scholars. This is all foolishness. Actually, this is devotion in the mode of passion. Mistaking the activity for the substance. Just think, okay, I know now Sanskrit, I know scripture, therefore I must be pure. No, that is nonsense. Actually, the best example of that is our own Indian society. We produce so many engineers every year, which may be more than the population of UK or something. And yet we are zero. Our engineering is like rubbish because we have theoretical knowledge, we have no practical knowledge. I mean, we don't know. None of our engineers actually work with their hands. They're like very poorly skilled. So that is the problem. Whatever you study, you have to assimilate it. And that's why Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they are hammering the same fact from different dimensions. One devotee was complaining to me that this is very repetitive and sometimes boring. That's a sign of foolishness. That means you're not understood. You're not understanding the scripture. That's why you think it is repetitive and boring. That means you're lacking in purity. So you are finding it repetitive and boring. Actually, this is the same fact. This is not repetition. This is emphasis. This is emphasis. This fact is being explained again and again so that we can get it into our dull heads. Now you see, in the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Brahma is explaining the same fact to Narad Muni. So if you see second canto, Kalam karma swabhavam cha mayesho mayaya swaya atman yadrachaya praptam vibhushur upadade. The Lord, who is the controller of all energies, thus creates by his own eternal potency, eternal time, the fate of all living entities and their particular nature for which they were created. And he again merges them independently. So you see, here we are explaining some of us are moving and some not moving. All of us come into existence, remain for some time, and are annihilated when the body is again mingled with the earth. Now, the same fact Brahmaji has also explained to Narad Muni, and the same fact is going to be expressed by Gajendra when he is praying to Lord Narayan. That you create all the elements of nature, and they merge. They come from you and they merge back into you. So you see, with this we have to understand that in this material world, whatever we see is belonging to the Supreme Lord. This also answers our question of the contradiction of good and evil. In this material world, there is no such thing as good and evil. Everything is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord under the influence of either spiritual energy or the material energy. If it is spiritual energy, then it is Advaita, then it is pure. If it is material energy, by that influence, it creates duality. So then there is a perception of Bhadra Abhadra. In this way, illusion is created. So here Brahmaji is explaining the same fact in second canto of Bhagavatam. Also, in the next verse, Lord Brahma explains further how this creation takes place. Kalad guna vyatikara parinama swabhavata karmano janma mahta purushadhishtad abhut. After the incarnation of the first Purush, Karana Vashayi Vishnu, the Mahatattva or the principles of material creation take place, and then time is manifested. And in course of time, the three qualities appear. Nature means the three qualitative appearances, they transform into activities. So you see, for example, if you're swinging your hands in the air and air is blowing because of that, that creation is also coming from Krishna. The thought of that activity, the very activity itself, is coming from Karana Vashayi Vishnu. So actually, there is nothing outside the existence of the Supreme. Everything is in Supreme. So we may think, like sometimes when we think everything is residing on Supreme, our conception is like that of maybe a tortoise carrying some insects or something, that, we are on the back of Krishna, but we are still independent. No, our thought process itself is a creation of this agitated Mahatattva, which is coming from Karana Vashayi Vishnu. Nature means the three qualitative appearances, they transform into activities. You see a small child running randomly here and there. That is a manifestation of Rajoguna, pure Rajoguna. The child has really no Sattva. He's like literally like an animal. Small children are like animals. They may show some affection or something, but they show no intellect. So that is at the stage where intelligence is not yet fully manifested. So it takes time, gradually Sattva Guna manifests and the living entity progresses further. In this way, you see, everything is coming from Karana Dakshaya Vishnu, who is himself emanating from the Lord, Supreme Lord Narayan. So it is all separated energies of Krishna, various transformations that we see as the phenomenal world. Everything is emanating from the Supreme Lord, who is the primeval cause. So this energy that we are seeing, this is Maya. This is the material energy of the Lord. Actually, as Srila Prabhupada explains, energy of the Lord is one. When the consciousness of the living entity is aligned with the Supreme Lord, it is known as Yogamaya. When this consciousness is inverted, it becomes manifested as Mahamaya. It is the same energy. And that's why you see in Bhagavatam, especially in Krishna book, if you read, Srila Prabhupada uses these two terms interchangeably and people become confused. Is this Mahamaya? Is this Yogamaya? Actually, it's true. It's just Yogamaya. Mahamaya is just an inverted manifestation of Yogamaya. Therefore, Acharyas sometimes use the term interchangeably. So there is nothing in the phenomenal world that is not produced by the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Aromas from the earth are different scents manufactured and used for different purposes, but the original cause is the earth, nothing else. Stool is also coming from earth. Aromas are also coming. So you may smell lavender and tangerine and you may think, oh, this is very nice smell. You may see stool and urine and you say they're obnoxious. But actually they are manifestation of the earth only. Earth mixing with air creates aroma. We have seen this also in the second canto. So when earth mixes with, so when there's air in itself is completely pure. The air element is completely pure element. Vayu has no smell or anything. When solid mixes, then aroma is created. When the same solid is mixed with liquid, tastes are created. And this is a biological fact also. Like if you ask some doctor in the group, they will also tell you that if the tongue is dry, there is no perception of taste. So when solid is mixed with liquid, taste is generated. When solid mixes with air, aroma is generated. In this way, different manifestations take place, but the elements are the same. You see, for example, certain fruits, they contain sulfur. Like for example, the black salt, it contains sulfurous compounds. The same sulfurous compounds are also present in stool. But one is a relishable spice, the other one is obnoxious substance, never to be touched. In fact, if one touches stool, one has to take bath, otherwise one becomes impure. So you see, but these are just manifestations of material nature. And that's why Jada Bharat was not cleaning himself. If you remember the previous chapter, the character of Jada Bharat. Jada Bharat, the father would tell him to evacuate and take bath. He would take bath and then evacuate. Because as a completely self-realized soul, as a fully liberated soul, Jada Bharat had complete knowledge of material elements. Therefore, for him, there was no bondage and no rules apply. In the 8th canto, Jada Bharat, Gajendra is also praying that those personalities who are liberated are beyond the purview of the rules and regulations of material nature, because the Lord is personally manifested in their heart and is directing their activities. So he explains, Gajendra is explaining that liberated souls are beyond the rules and regulations of the Vedas, because you are personally directing their wanderings, being situated in their hearts. Jada Bharat was completely liberated soul. He was fully dedicated to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, for him, there was no question of material activities. You see, his father, Rishabdev also manifested his activities in such a manner. He would pass stool and he would roll in it. But as Srila Prabhupada mentions, his stool was fragrant. Why? Because he was the Supreme Lord himself. So Jada Bharat was also manifesting the same divine qualities, being the son of the Supreme Lord himself. So therefore, for him also, there was no contradiction within the material world. For him, the material elements were just material elements. But for living entities like us, they are pure substances or impure substances. Because our consciousness is still in Dvaita. But all the contradictions are resolved once everything merges back into the Supreme Lord, as we have seen in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, 2.5.21. You see in this verse that everything merges into him. He merges them independently. Atman yadrachaya praptam vibhu bhushur upadade. He merges all of them, praptam. They all merge independently into the Supreme Lord. So, for example, you know, if the urine is dried up, it becomes ammoniacal compounds. And then if you pass high electricity, they break into nitrogen, hydrogen. Then there is no question of pure or impure. They're just elements. But if they come together in a particular manner, then they become impure. So you see, this is how material nature works. And this is actually Supreme Lord is the resolution of all contradictions within this material world. Hare Krishna. Is any questions or comments here? I'm sorry, this was a slightly complicated explanation.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
Can
Krishna.
some just the understanding that I want to clarify if I'm getting this right. So even though they are all coming from the same cause, they're all coming from Krishna. So for example, a human being and snake, they're all coming from Krishna. Or a human being, or say a snake like human being, they're all coming from Krishna. But we don't hug a snake, or we don't go close to that person who's snake like human being, you know. That means that even though they are the same source, yet there is a difference based on the material guna that the snake and human being is associated with. So there is Advait and Advait philosophy coming here. That means because of this Dvait and Advait philosophy, we start to do Anukul and Pratikul in relation to our bhakti.
Correct.
Even though they are coming from the same source, but we have to apply the Pratikul and Anikul concepts.
Yes.
ठीक है जी.
Okay,
ठीक
now,
है जी.
well, this doesn't end here actually.
हाँ जी.
This Anukul and Pratikul, what is this actually? So, as we have discussed also, what is Mahamaya and Yogamaya? It is the direction of our thought. You know, like magnet, what is North Pole, what is South Pole? Actually, if you remember basic high school physics, this magnetic lines are actually in one direction. They are unidirectional. So according to our perception, we say this is south, this is north. Okay, in reality, it is just the magnetic field is just like a circular field. That's it. So you see, in this material world also, what is the contradiction? The contradiction actually lies in our consciousness. Jad Bharat was captured by dacoits to be sacrificed. And Maya Devi personally manifested to Satan. Because Jad Bharat did not identify with Maya at all. He did not identify at all. He knew this body will be there, it may not be there. Actually, I am not this body at all. Like for Jad Bharat, there was no question of being conscious of body at all. So he was actually unconcerned. Not like sometimes we see, like I remember when I was in Vrindavan, some devotees were doing the parikrama barefoot. No, it has to be done. And then they got some glass pieces or something. You know, it's a tar road. It's a dirty road there. And then they got severe infections. And then they were bedridden. Some people got fever, high like sepsis, and so many things. And then they were like cursing, oh, what happened? I'm in pain. This is well, Sanatana Goswami was not thinking like this. He was walking the same forest. He was not thinking at all. We are not of that level. Sanatana Goswami is also free from his body. But we are not. So we should not artificially think like this. This process, you know, the Vedic process that we are given of Varnashram, of Brahmacharya, of Grihasthashram, actually, if you see, they are all at bodily level. What is Brahmacharya? Avoiding women. What is Grihasthashram? Having intimate connection with women. But for someone like Jad Bharat or someone like Vansidas Babaji, there is no question of connection or no connection. They don't care. Because this consciousness, because we have this consciousness. So at the same time, you see, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would say that Grihasthashram means nothing. At other times, he would emphasize on Grihasthashram. So why this contradiction? Actually, there is no contradiction. All these rules and regulations apply if we are in material consciousness. Because these rules are meant to purify us gradually. But if we are already completely purified, then why should we follow these rules? So, like for example, your house may be next to a bus depot. So you don't get out of your house and take a bus because buses are running there. You are in your house.
Mhm.
You don't need to go out and do anything. You are in your house already. So
Mhm.
it is like that. So rules and regulations are for those who are conditioned, and they
Mhm.
are meant to remove this conditioning and bring them to a spiritual platform.
Mhm.
By following the rules and regulations, one becomes purified, and then contradictions are resolved.
Mhm.
But if one is not purified, all the contradictions exist.
So when you said Varnashram Dharam is at the bodily level, the activities are at the bodily level to help us purify our consciousness and
Yes.
connect to the spiritual level, है ना?
Absolutely.
ठीक है.
It is meant to take us to the domain of spiritual level. At the spiritual level, this also has to be rejected.
True.
We see the story of Maharaj Prachina Barishat.
Yes.
Maharaj Prachina Barishat is an excellent grihastha. He's an ideal grihastha. But Narad Muni is now explaining higher principles to him. You know, like you see this big, that NASA shuttle that used to go to space, Challenger, Columbia. They had those big rockets attached to them. You know, this big stage 1, stage 2 rockets, and then
Yes.
but they would drop them.
Mhm.
When the shuttle came back from space, you did not see those huge rockets hanging next to it.
True.
Why? Because they are meant to be thrown back to Earth. Up to a certain level, these rockets are rejected. Only the small satellite goes to space. The remaining stages of rockets are just discarded back because their job is done. So Grahastha Ashram also, this Sharirik Dharma, these bodily religions, they also have to be rejected as we keep on advancing stage by stage.
In this last line that Prabhupada ji has put in, this actually pinches a lot, where he's saying everything exists by virtue of the potency of Supreme Lord, although due to our ignorance, the Supreme Lord is not perceived in everything. We talk about looking for Krishna all the time. He's here, but we can't see him.
Yeah, so if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela, you will get a proper explanation of this part. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he would see this sand hill, this Chatak Parvat in Puri. It's a sand dune on the beach, and he would think it is Govardhan. He would be reminded of Govardhan. He would see the blue clouds, and he would be reminded of Krishna. So all the time, everything was reminding him of Krishna. He just could not live without Krishna. So you are studying Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will find it in the end, like in the Antya Leela, Lord is manifesting the ecstasies of prema. At that time, Mahaprabhu is not giving any instructions. Mahaprabhu is in pramad. He's talking like a madman.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna ji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, we stop here today. Thank you very much, everyone. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna ji.
Thank you all the devotees. Hare Krishna.